Going to get started? Going to get ready to get started. All right, good morning and welcome to day 3 of our budget hearings. Today, this morning, we will talk to Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education as well as our community colleges. Before we begin, Chairman Struzzi, do you have any introductory remarks?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. As we begin this third day of hearings focused on higher education, I think there's a lot of questions that our members are going to have. And in the interest of time, knowing that our 2 previous morning hearings have gone an extra hour, I will turn it over to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. What we're going to do is, if everyone at the table could just start just quickly introducing yourself and institution or association, and then after that we'll swear everybody in. We can start from the right.
Sharon Minnick, the Executive Vice Chancellor of the State System.
I'm Chris Fiorentino. I'm the Interim Chancellor of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education.
Hi, I'm Nick Newpower. I'm the Vice President for the Pennsylvania Commission for Community Colleges, and I also served as a President at Butler County Community College.
Good morning, Guy Generals, President of Community College of Philadelphia, and I am also the Vice Chair for the Commission on Community Colleges.
Good morning, Quentin Bullock, President for the Community College of Allegheny County and Chair for the Pennsylvania Commission for Community Colleges.
Thank you all. Please, if you would stand so we can swear all of you in. Testifiers, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, we're going to start and jump right on in to our questions. In the middle of the table is a black box. When it turns green, our members will proceed with their questions. Each member will have 5 minutes to ask questions. When the light turns yellow, that means that there's 30 seconds left. When the light turns red, we would ask you to conclude your comments so we can get as many questions in as possible. And we're going to start this morning with Representative Paul Friel. Representative Paul Friel.
I didn't know I was first. So. All right. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for being here today. I really appreciate this. I think, education obviously is one of the most fundamental things we do, and I appreciate your discussions with me, last week, give me an update on what we're doing. One of the things I want to understand is, as the PASHE schools have consolidated and we have large universities like Penn State with multiple campuses, can you just talk a little bit about the long-term plans on our campuses where we have declining enrollment or where we have strength and overlap with some of the other universities, and what our plans are looking forward for both our facilities and just where you see student enrollment in different parts of the states?
Are you referencing plans that include both state-related and the PASHE schools and the community, broadly speaking?
Broadly speaking, okay. How does it impact PASHE schools with, I know there's some overlap with campuses, some campuses closing, how does this impact PASHE and what parts of the states, and how do you see that playing out?
Well, that certainly is an issue right now. Obviously, our enrollments have been declining across the Commonwealth. The demographics have been unfavorable in terms of traditional high school graduates. It's impacting all colleges and universities in the Commonwealth. And as far as the issue of colleges competing with one another if they're in a similar geography, we have not really begun conversations with Penn State or with other state relateds in terms of branch campuses or the Commonwealth campuses. Certainly the new State Board of Education is looking at that issue. My view of that, frankly, is that we have schools in close proximity competing for a diminishing number of students and to a great extent offering similar programs. And this is something that we need to start having conversations about. We want to make sure that we're offering opportunities for our students. We don't want to create higher education deserts. I believe that schools can thrive even if they're in close proximity, but they need to be coordinated in terms of the programs that we're offering. So we're not competing with one another for a diminishing student body, and then neither of us are able to really have a sufficient number of students to support the programs.
Yeah, and I can jump in from a community college perspective. We are certainly always, always have been and always will be student-centered institutions. Students are at the very core of what we do. But in terms of what our sector has done to right-size the ship as it relates to the enrollment decline, is that our workforce collectively as 15 has decreased about 43% in the last decade or so. So we have right-sized what's going on at our own institutions. And we're all about collaborations and partnerships. So for those institutions that might have some excess space on their campuses, we bring community partners to our campuses and really want to serve as the key collaborators. And Dr. Generals has a very cool example of that that's going on in Philadelphia.
Thank you. So we are partnering with Cheney University. We've actually started the process of moving a portion of their operations on our campus in the context of a university center with a focus on creating teacher ed pipelines. So we're working with the Philadelphia School District, students coming to the community college in the seamless transition right into Cheney University. This is a model that, there are examples across the country. One that I've worked on. We've requested a special appropriation to fund this through the next couple of years, but we're very excited about the prospects of moving students specifically for teachers ed, but not exclusive to that. We're also looking at workforce strategies. We're looking at partnering with them on the Hydrogen Hub, specialized training there. We have a Career Advanced Tech Center, which matches very nicely with that. So we've been working on this for 6 months now, and hopefully we'll see our first students, Cheney students, community college students in this pipeline at Community College of Philadelphia's campus in September.
Yeah, so that's a really good segue into something I'll just ask about. I know we talked about last year we passed a bill that included articulation agreements across the state, really trying to make that pathway for students to go from community college to our PASHE system and do it. Can you just talk a little bit about how the success of that and kind of where we are in the implementation of those, and is it helping that enrollment into the PASHE system from our community colleges?
Yes, certainly it is. Clearly, the least cost path to a 4-year degree is 2 years at a community college and 2 years at a PASHE institution. And we are very committed, all of us are very committed to ensuring that. At this point, as a result of the hard work of the presidents of the community colleges, the presidents of the PASHE campuses and their staff, we are transferring in excess of 95% of the credits of students who are coming from community colleges to PASHE schools. And we're examining what's wrong with the other 5%. We're working on that. But we're very sensitive to the fact that we don't want students to transfer and lose credits, and we're working very hard to make it happen.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Alston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chancellor, and the rest of our distinguished panel for being out here today. Appreciate all your testimony and looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. A recent report from Western Interstate Commission on Higher Education noted a trend I'm sure you're all aware of. This report projected a decline in traditional age high school graduates over the next 10 to 20 years. An analysis of the data shows that 5 states with large populations, including California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania, will account for 3/4 of the total projected decline nationally. Do you agree with this assessment? And what are your institutions doing to prepare for and manage this decline in potential students?
Thank you, sir. You want to?
Please go ahead, Chris.
Certainly the demographics, one thing's for sure, we can see what's coming down the pipeline. The people who are in first grade today are going to be on our campuses in 12 years. So these are fairly easy trends to be able to predict. And yes, that's exactly what we expect to happen. And frankly, that's what has been happening for the past decade plus. We have lost a third of our enrollments, PASHE collectively, in the time frame from around 2014 to the current year. And the demographic projections going forward are also showing that this trend is going to continue. Now, even with that, we're still proud that we're graduating 21,000 or so students a year, so we're still graduating significant numbers, but we have to be very focused on strategies for recruiting students outside of that traditional age group, whether it be adults who have some college credits, whether it be students from challenged backgrounds that might not otherwise be seeing themselves as college students and recruiting them, because so many of them are capable with a little bit of support. And we also need to be very focused on making sure that we're aligning our resources. If you're losing enrollments, you can still operate efficiently as long as you don't have too many faculty, too many staff, too many buildings, and that's what we're very focused on accomplishing.
And I will add to that, within the community college sector, we are reviewing the various supportive services that we offer. We recognize that by retaining our students, we'll also have an impact on the continuation in growth in enrollment. This is achieved by developing strategic enrollment retention management plans, which are developed on most of our campuses that targets the areas in which we want to focus based on our region. Within Pittsburgh, we recognize that our penetration rate had an opportunity for growth. So we've increased the outreach to the various 43 school districts, which has yielded results. We've also reached out to the returning adult, which has also yielded results. So as we build upon the diverse populations that we serve, it would help offset the decline in the recent high school graduates that we are projecting in 2026, that will have a positive impact on enrollment.
Thank you. So shifting gears a little bit, do the system universities and community colleges have any employees currently who make minimum wage, including student employees? If so, do you know what financial impact that would have on the colleges and universities? Obviously, this was proposed in the governor's budget, the minimum wage.
Well, our employees are unionized except for our management. And we would have, that would not really impact our schools. The starting wages even for our lowest level incoming positions would be above the minimum wage. Student workers is another matter. Many of the student workers are employed using federal student aid dollars, and that becomes an interesting issue. We've had student groups in the past arguing that we should raise the wages for them, but part of the problem is we're trying to support as many students as we can, and if we have a fixed pot of federal money, if we start increasing the wages that we pay to the students, we can't help as many students. And this is not, we're not talking about trying to provide a living wage for these students. We're trying to help support them through college. So our focus is on trying to help as many of them as we can.
Thank you.
And very similar for our sector.
Same here. I would say we are way ahead of the minimum wage with our contracted employees through our collective bargaining by a number of years. We've been ahead of the minimum wage. And the same with students. We did raise our student workers. Not 100% sure about the students that receive financial aid work study, but we do also have student workers, and their rates are above the minimum wage as well.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Salisbury.
Good morning, and thank you for being here with us today. I want to build off a little bit of what Dr. Bullock mentioned to the previous questioner about recruitment. And at the risk of sounding overly effusive with praise, I will say that you do a fantastic job of recruitment in District 34 in Allegheny County, and I have the privilege of seeing you do that work very regularly. So One of the things that my office was able to do with the Community College of Allegheny County was do a returning student program, as you mentioned, as an opportunity for attracting new students, since we know that there may be a decline expected in enrollment. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the types of students who return, how you attract them, what types of programs they're engaging in.
It's a very good question. We have several initiatives that we look at. First, we meet with business and industry to talk about the various opportunities, which allows us to also connect with employees within the various businesses. In addition to that, we have community outreach, open houses, where we invite the community in on our North Side campus, or any of our campuses, but most recently with the opening of our new Center for Education, Innovation, and Training. We've had tremendous turnout to come out and learn about the various careers in advanced manufacturing, automation technology, robotics, the new School of Culinary Arts, and a variety of our non-credit apprenticeship programs. Through that initiative and the interaction and talking with business and industry who participate in the job fairs, it connects returning adults to opportunities that perhaps they didn't know. We've developed short-term training programs that create the certifications that industries recognize for hiring. And we also customize how we're able to deliver the instruction, which has been a win-win for the returning adult. And in our centers, we offer a variety of non-credit initiatives that connects the returning adult to entry-level programs that align with our credit programs, ensuring that they can continue to grow and thrive. And then lastly, non-credit initiatives that helps an individual to be able to get entry-level work with the ability to work while returning to school to earn additional credentials.
And I know that you're attracting a lot of people through the online programs. Do you feel that you're going to need to decrease your physical presence, or do you think that interest in the physical, in real life, if you will, one-to-one programs, face-to-face, will maintain interest enough to maintain the physical presence in the community, or do you see more shifting to online?
That's an excellent question. We are seeing an increased interest in online. We are doing a facilities assessment to understand the utilization of our spaces. This would help us to determine which facilities do we need to look at. We've already started consolidating our programs and more unified across the entire college versus campus space, which is helping to bring in more efficiency in spaces, and that trend will continue.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your answering my questions today, and thank you for all the work that you do in my own community as well.
Thank you.
Thank the gentlelady, Representative Barton.
Thank you, Chairman Harris, and thank you for being here, esteemed panel. I hope that the day will come soon when we don't have to talk about the pandemic or COVID and what we went through there, but at prior hearings, we have discussed the K through 12 learning loss that came out of the pandemic, and concerns were both academic and behavioral. I just wanted, and I thought it was important that we check in on that, and specifically, as we get further away from the pandemic, are you continuing to see evidence of learning loss? And is it improving or getting worse?
If I can just comment on that. Philadelphia School District was noted as the leader nationwide for making up the loss in the middle school relative to the pandemic. I think there's a long way to go. The pace by which they've been able to make that loss up is something that, you know, people should be proud of in the city as well as the state. I would say, as it relates to the community college, because so many of those students come to our doors, we are seeing fewer students with the need for more times in remediation. That's something that we track, how long it takes to get through a level of developmental education. So we are seeing that time is being reduced. We are providing a number of what I would consider innovative means to do that. So students who have remedial needs in math, we allow them to take the math, but at the same time to begin taking their programs of choice. And they've been quite successful. I agree with the sentiment, with the theme of your question, that the pandemic was devastating. There's no doubt about it. especially in inner city and minority communities. It was devastating, but I think you're slowly starting to see some rebound relative to educational attainment, as well as, in our case, enrollment. Students are actually starting to come back to school.
That's good to hear.
Let me quickly add that we're seeing the same thing. And of course, as students are coming through the pipeline, the first group that came in after the pandemic had been in high school during the pandemic. Now we're getting into the middle school group. So we're seeing different kinds of problems over time because they were at different points in their educational careers. But it continues to be an issue, and we're doing a lot of hands-on remediation to support them.
Is there specific things, or there programs that you're using to address those issues that you're seeing? Are there any specifics you can share?
Well, there's a whole array of things. There are many different challenges that they're coming with. They may have math challenges, as President General suggested, or writing or study skills. And we have teams of support staff, not faculty, but who are counseling the students, who are meeting with them, identifying what their challenges are. They can take certain tests. We can identify where their gaps are, and then we can target their gaps so we can help them as efficiently as possible. So everybody is working on trying to achieve that, to try to improve the retention of these students.
Thank you.
And one point I can say across the board in our sector, and I'm guessing also in the systems, is the colleges are addressing mental health, not only of our students, but our faculty and staff in ways that far exceed what it was that we were doing prior to the pandemic.
Thank you. Let me shift topics here, and from Chamber of Commerce's to economic development corporations, and in this body right here, we regularly are talking about workforce development, and I'd like to discuss the economic and workforce development as it relates to universities and colleges, and what we're doing to make sure educational programs that you offer are meeting the needs of our employers here in the Commonwealth and our local communities. Can you share some of that?
Certainly. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have around 21,000 graduates a year. Fully 2/3 of them are in the targeted degree programs that are in high demand in the Commonwealth: business, nursing, other health professions, education, social work. So we are offering those programs. STEM is one of the newer areas where we're seeing a lot of demand for that. So we're focusing a lot of effort on that, and also on offering things within our array of offerings. Many of these things are actually done at the community colleges much more efficiently than what we can do at PASHE, but we might have HR certifications or accounting certifications, finance certifications that are things that would be related to our programs.
Do you work with local businesses, local chambers, local economic development to see what programs are needed, what the Commonwealth is going to be needing coming forward? Is that something that's a common practice, or is it a new practice?
Yeah, we pay very close attention to the high priority occupation list that comes out. And let's say that there's something very unique in our own local community, we will work with the appropriate parties to petition that a program of need be placed on that list.
And to give a few examples of how that has turned out, let's take our automotive industry. As an increase in electric vehicles, we are launching one of the first electric vehicle technician programs at CCAC this spring. Other examples include industrial maintenance technician, which is another innovative way that many of our industries are utilizing. Instead of the traditional thermostat, everything is now mechanical. We're preparing individuals in that area. Others would be our mechatronics, which is another area of focus. Mechatronics apprenticeships allows a person to work on the job while also taking appropriate courses. That has also been very beneficial with the various businesses. So our close working relationships across our sector has yielded new programs that are aligning, supporting our region's workforce demands.
Thank the gentleman.
Thank you.
Representative Young.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Happy Black History Month. I've been saying that at every hearing because It needs to be said. I'm standing here right now almost in a little situation because I'm a mom of a high schooler who's on her way to college, and I have a college-age kid. So as a mom, I have questions, but as a legislator, I too have questions because to me, this is real time. And as my colleague just mentioned, we would love to see the day where we no longer have to talk about the COVID era, but the COVID era is real, and it definitely impacted not only this Commonwealth, but the entire world. And so as I too, real time, try to support not only the students in my household, but the students in my district, I realize that there are still some prevalent concerns that even parents are in need of asking for support from institutions like yourselves as we try to help our children readjust to society. And so I will just go ahead and say I do have a deep appreciation for Dr. Generals only because I'm in Philadelphia and Delaware counties. So there's a lot of conversations that happens because as we're looking to educate our children, we need to make sure that they are well-rounded and addressing not only mental health, thank you for mentioning that, but even the basic needs. And so my question is around not only helping our students have systems in place for mental health supports and ways to navigate through college financially, the basic needs for food and housing is still a question of concern as it relates to parents wondering how they can offset that cost, because that's a real issue. So can you tell me some of the programs that you have in place around basic needs such as food and housing?
Certainly. We discovered on our PASHE campuses, and this is I think a national trend at this point, that we had many students who, while they had financial aid to pay for their tuition and maybe their books, they didn't necessarily have lunch money. And what resulted from that, and as president of Westchester, we started this as we started to realize through the financial aid office that there were a lot of students who were not able to buy food. So what you'll find now on many college campuses is food pantries. And the food pantries are open and available, and it's actually shocking how many students on the Westchester campus, the one I'm most familiar with, utilize the food pantry on a regular basis to be able to have their lunch or dinners, whatever. I will say that it's been very heartening because we've been able to do a lot of fundraising around this. There are a lot of private givers who are supportive of this. But something else I quickly want to throw in, we also realized at some point that we had students applying for financial aid, and the only address they showed on the financial aid form was the residence hall. They had no other home. And we were routinely closing for Thanksgiving break or closing between the semesters. And we realized that we had students we were turning out and they had nowhere to go. So what you're seeing now is that campuses are keeping their residence halls open even when universities are not in session, because we have students who see that as their home, their only home.
We're partners with Single Stop, which is a national organization that provides a one-stop social economic support services for students. So everything from homelessness to food insecurity, mental health, or whatever their needs, legal support. Right now we're in tax season. It's amazing how much money students get back when they get proper tax advice. And we also have food pantries, as most colleges do. We collect food to provide students something that they can eat during the course of the day. And we've developed with our culinary arts program a part-time process whereby some of the foods that they cook and learning how to cook can then be used for students to come during certain times during the day. And of course, Phil Abundance is in our neighborhood, so we get support from them as well. So we do what we can. It is food insecurity, but it's also housing insecurity. So we try to work both ends to make sure that our students are whole, which is a prerequisite to being successful academically.
Yeah, I admit go ahead, someone was gonna.
I was just going to share that at Community College of Allegheny County, we also have an emergency fund because there are times that many students have unexpected emergencies. We've been able to raise funds working collaboratively with our Educational Foundation and other donors to assist a student. They can get up to $500 upon a request by demonstrating what the need is. We've also provided bus tokens to assist with transportation. There are times that students may not have money for a bus token. We offer a bus pass for one entire month, and they can get it as regularly as they need it, as long as they are enrolled and request it. And then the last thing I would state, we have navigators, and our navigators help students navigate various systems. So if housing is an area or other social needs, they help identify the sources to connect them to the resources that will assist them in achieving their goals.
Thank you. Very helpful information, not only as a legislator, but as a mom. Thank you.
Thank the gentlelady. Representative Flood.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Thank you for being here. It's no secret that the cost of attaining higher education, it scares people away, students, families, which I think is a shame, because it really does impede an individual from personal growth and an improved quality of life. And so I think that higher education is very, very important. And in my district, I hosted a FIA event last week to really educate families on opportunities that are available to them, helping to fund their students' education. And the point was made that an individual who goes further in their education over their lifetime could make over $1 million more, which is huge, for those who just come out with maybe just a high school diploma. And so, the U.S. Department of Education had some serious problems with their new online system last year with the FAFSA. And the data that was transmitted to the college and universities was much later than normal in preparation for the current 24-25 academic year. What kind of challenges did this create for the community colleges and the PASHE universities?
I can start. It was a plus for us because community colleges, we register students late. So by the time everything got cleaned up, we were able to get the students who may not have been able to get into the other institutions. It also allowed us to help connect students to the various resources. But we saw an increase in the number of FAFSA applications at CCAC, and I heard similar responses from my colleagues across the Commonwealth.
At the PASHE schools, this was a serious concern. We've also had extensive conversations with FIA. FIA was significantly impacted by this. They worked very hard to be able to get the financial aid to the students. We talked to them about some of the issues. There were certain students there were problem situations based on some information issue or something, and our discussion with them focused around, let's just figure this out, because these students are fearing that they're going to have to drop out because they don't have their financial aid. We believe that it negatively impacted enrollment to some extent. It's hard to measure exactly how much that impact was, but we're all working very hard to right that ship and to make sure going forward that we have robust enrollment in FIA and that the FIA dollars are supporting our students.
Can I ask, for those students who were negatively impacted, as you just suggested, was it because the money wasn't there on time? Because I had heard some stories where students were actually, the money wasn't there on time and now they're getting charged late fees. And it was not a problem on the FIA end, but more on the side of the university. And are these issues that you've seen? And then if you could just elaborate how you see the system working now.
Well, all the universities delayed their deadlines for decisions. We worked with this. I think the PASHE schools have been going through a software conversion. FIA has been going through a software conversion, and these things always add challenges. It's like trying to drive the car and repair it at the same time. It can be difficult. So there were impediments in all places, but everybody worked very hard to make sure that the students were not negatively impacted by this. And we just moved back our deadlines, reassured the students that they didn't have to worry, that once things came through, everything was going to be fine. We didn't want to lose students because of the uncertainty around that, and everybody worked hard to make sure that didn't happen.
And if I may add, an important part of your question and your statement was cost, and there's no question that that is a significant issue across the country. Affordability is part of our mission for community colleges: affordability, accessibility, and high quality. Dr. Bullock mentioned this morning that about 80% of his students graduating from CCAC graduate debt-free. That's very similar across the state. There is an intention, there's a strategy to keep tuition as low as possible. And when you're getting data, 70%, 80% who are graduating debt-free, we think that that is a key variable that needs to be stressed.
And I would add, we looked also at the students who choose the two-year college as their first step. What's the cost savings? Based on CCAC's data, students will save $26,000 if they take the first 2 years compared to a public institution, and $75,000 over private colleges and universities. So it shows it's a great value added by commencing doing your studies within a two-year college.
Thank you. My time's up.
Thank the gentlelady. Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for coming here to testify in front of us today. I'm a former community college professor, so adjunct professor, so I know the great work that our community colleges do. I'm very passionate about it. It provides opportunities for first-generation college students, single parents, minorities, a lot of these groups that are having a hard time getting opportunities. And I think having these opportunities in our backyard is just really a special thing to have. So I have a question about capital funding. This seems like it's been a pretty stagnant line item. I don't think it's changed in maybe a decade. Correct me if I'm wrong. What are some of the projects that are backlogged for our community colleges? That's one of my questions. And I've worked closely with Bucks County Community College. They have great relationships with local labor, project labor agreements in place. I'm wondering how many of our other community colleges have that.
I'll go ahead and start. We were able to connect with our 15 institutions, and just from a deferred maintenance point of view, we're looking at approximately $360 million. And if you track the history of our community colleges first in legislation in 1949, 63 is the Community College Act, and what mirrored what was going on nationally, community colleges started emerging in the mid to late 1960s and early 1970s. So if you play that out, there are a number of institutions that are now 50 or 60 years old. And while some of us are building buildings, if you will, that correlate to the technical nature of these occupational programs, we have 50 or 60-year-old buildings. So we need to make sure that we have the appropriate upkeep for those buildings, not only in terms of efficiencies, but also from a safety perspective. So we're really hoping for an increase in capital as it relates to that.
I think we try to strike a balance between deferred maintenance as well as keeping up with the latest technologies. I can say from our point of view, we had no means to provide advanced technology or some of the auto technology, autonomously driving vehicles that Quentin has talked about. So many of us, as well as healthcare facilities as well. These are all, these types of facilities are modern in nature, they're innovative in nature, and there's a real belief that in order to provide the best quality education for our students, we have to provide the best equipment, the best facilities. So we have to judge between the deferred maintenance, all of our buildings are old, 65, in some cases 70 years old, versus keeping up with whatever the newest technologies are. So our newest building was $16 million to build, and it provided, we went from 3 bays for auto technology to 15 bays, and we have a waiting line of students trying to get in there. So the need is there to try to provide these state-of-the-art facilities, but at the same time, during the summer, we got buildings that are 100 degrees, and in the winter, we got buildings that are too cold to go into. So we have to continue to fix and keep up with the deferred maintenance process.
And the second half of that question, anything regarding how many of our institutions have project labor agreements, the community colleges?
I didn't hear it. Say it.
Project labor agreements with our community colleges. Do we have an idea how many there are? how many have that out of the 15 institutions?
Yeah, my assumption is, and we'll follow up with this, is that the majority do, but that's something we will certainly get back to you on.
And one of the other requests I saw from the community colleges was $5 million for non-credit workforce development. I saw great things from the adaptability from Bucks County Community College, where they see a problem and they're able to adapt their education. One of the great programs they did was supply chain management during the pandemic. I'm wondering if you could just describe some of the benefits that are expected from that $5 million non-credit workforce development ask.
Yeah, certainly. While we understand our role in an associate's degree to put people into the workforce, directly into the workforce, our role in transferring Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education universities. But what's going on around us right now, maybe an associate degree isn't the appropriate terminal degree to get into the workforce. So we have these very quick workforce development programs that hold up in terms of the rigor and the assessment and the outcomes, many of which will correlate to earning certifications. These are generally stackable opportunities so that the student can utilize these skills, go into the workplace, and hopefully go on to the associate's and even bachelor's degrees.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. I'm going to dovetail off the good gentleman's questioning because community colleges are very important to me. I have a Butler Community College in my district, and we're very excited because they're putting up a new location that we're happy to have. But I was concerned that the governor has proposed level funding, which is $541.16 million for the transfer of the Community College Capital Fund. The colleges requested a 6% increase, and we talked a little bit about that just now. But what are some of the projects that will be potentially impacted if you're not funded as requested?
Thank you, and appreciate that question. And just a brief description of our capital process. Not only is it for funding for deferred maintenance or new buildings, like Dr. General said, but in the case of Lawrence County, Newcastle, Shenango Township specifically, it's to help us with a lease payment that would be able to provide that wonderful education to the citizens of Lawrence County. So we not only have the larger building projects, the deferred maintenance, but also the lease capabilities. And one other added variable to this is within the last several years, I would say the state allows the colleges to put in funding for cash projects. So an example of a cash project could be perhaps the repaving or the blacktopping of a parking lot or new doors. And the way the capital process works for the community colleges is half of the money, once it goes through the rigor of an evaluation system, and then the college is responsible for coming up with the other half. That either comes from capital reserves, our local sponsor, or fundraising. So the fact that you brought that up, Representative Brown, it is incredibly important as our institutions age and we look to match the community's needs.
Thank you. Last year at this hearing, when discussing community colleges and the capital funding, we talked about how the process is very bureaucratic and inefficient, and that the community colleges were working with the Department of Education to make it less so. So can you talk to me about how those discussions are going, if progress is being made?
I am very happy to, and also happy to report that on the back end of this, a brand new model that was accepted by the Department of Ed and the community college sector has made it so much easier for capital applications. It allows for the flexibility of large capital projects, leases, cash projects, and again, a year later, here to say that that new model, which we dubbed the recency model, is in play right now. The colleges will be submitting their applications to the department. The deadline is March 15th.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Do you know how many projects are still waiting for funding from the Commonwealth?
Yeah, each college, so there's 15 of us, each will put in 2 projects for a total of 30, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't more than 30 projects back home. So of that deferred maintenance number that I gave you, there are literally dozens of projects that are associated, and each of our colleges have a facilities master plan where they not only have deferred maintenance, but also capital projects.
And what's the average time that you have to wait for a reimbursement?
Once approved by the department, I believe that there are payments that occur about every 6 months. So the turnaround, once funds are approved and available, is a relatively quick turnaround.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks for your support.
We thank the gentlelady, Representative Abney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here this morning. Wanted to talk a little bit to a deeper dive into college affordability, particularly at the PASHE institutions. And one of the budget request documents that you all submit, I think, is figure number 16. It noted that since 2018, enrollments for students who come from families who are making more than $110,000 has increased 16%, the enrollment has. However, in that same time period, enrollment has decreased by 32% for students of families whose income is less than $110,000. It's clear that higher education has become unaffordable for lower income and middle income students and families. And so a lot of this is due to increasing costs. So what do you all feel like can be done to sort of reverse this trend? Obviously more money from the state. Is it more money for FIA or some kind of combination?
Well, first of all, let me just observe that statistic that you just quoted is a national statistic. We're suffering that in Pennsylvania, but it's also occurring throughout the rest of the country. And affordability is the major factor that comes into play. Now, what we have done in PASHE, and you referenced 2018, the tuition that we charged in the 2018-19 academic year has been held level ever since. And in fact, our request this year for 6.5% increase, should we receive that funding, we have committed that we will maintain level tuition again for next year. In addition to the level tuition over this entire period of time, the universities collectively have invested $146 million out of the E&G budgets, out of their general operating budgets, to provide additional financial aid support for our students to drive the cost down even further. It's critical that we maintain as low a cost as possible. And during this time period, the consumer price index has increased by 28%. And we have essentially, with the generosity of the General Assembly and the governor, we have been able to shift the burden away from the students. The appropriation represented about 28% of our budget in 2018, and as of last year, it was 35%, and we're very appreciative of that support because that has enabled us to shift the burden away from the students.
Thank you.
I think Dr. Bullock mentioned the value added with community colleges, with regards to community colleges and students going to community colleges first. And I'll add to that, not only coming to the community college and then transfer gives them a leg up in terms of the finances, but with community colleges, so much and so many of our students are coming, are still in high school. So through dual enrollment programs, which we're funding through either private dollars or grant dollars, students are able to come to us with anywhere between 15 to 24. In CCP's case, they're able to actually complete an associate's degree at the same time that they complete their high school degree. So at that point, as a rising junior, they have no cost. They haven't spent a dime on higher education. And in addition, like the 4 years, we raise a lot of money. I mean, we have donors that support community colleges that are completely committed in the mission, and I'm sure it's the case with the 4 years colleges. So private dollars, we constantly look for grants. Community colleges are the value added as it relates to higher ed writ large. And we're working closer and closer with the high school. There are statistics you might know, but somewhere 30–40% of all undergrad enrollees now are students taking dual enrollment courses. So that's a phenomenon that's growing and will eventually suppress the cost of tuition across the country.
So sort of staying in that same vein and spirit for the community college, I think you all requested about a 6% increase for capital and operational funding. I think it equates to about $16 million or so in the proposed budget. There's about a $13 million increase. Can you help us understand what the real world implications of the General Assembly not meeting that 6% increase means for your colleges?
Absolutely. When you think about the new emerging programs, the ability to attract and retain talent, the ability to ensure that we maintain high quality instruction, the ability that we are able to adapt to changing demands for new programs, the additional resources will assist us in meeting each one of those initiatives. We are very responsive to our regions and our workforce needs, but in order to do that, we have to also attract the talent with the skills in order to provide emerging workforce training, as well as retain long-serving personnel who have also been in the workforce that will continue to support our efforts.
Thank you. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the time.
We thank the gentleman. Representative Mostello.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. I first would like to welcome one of my fellow Butler County people here, Dr. Newpower. Very proud of everything he has accomplished. He just retired a few years ago, and leading Butler County Community College for 8 years as the top community college in the Commonwealth. Great job on that one, with all due respect to every other community college out there. But, so my question goes to Pashi, though. At prior hearings, we've always discussed the underutilization of the system facilities, that many campuses have housing, classrooms that are underutilized, and the need to find creative ways to use these facilities for the benefit of the universities and everyone involved, even the community surrounding it. And these are sorts of partnerships I realize take time and just to develop and kind of use those facilities. And we even heard during the governor's budget address that he was going to ask DGS, Department of General Services, to implement some policies and changes to reduce the number of buildings used and leased by the Commonwealth. And the question is to the acting chancellor, do you have an inventory list of all the PASHE buildings that are broken down into categories, the academic buildings, administrative, dorms, facilities? Do you have I see you shaking your head. So do we have kind of a breakdown on those and where we stand with all of that? You can hit the button.
Sorry about that. Yes, we do have an inventory of all our academic buildings as well as our housing and student facilities. We have the square footage. We have which buildings are currently offline, and being offline could be for anything from renovation of the building to being offline for movement into the pipeline for demolition. So we track that at the system level. The universities track that. That's how they really look at their capital needs and where to put their, both the Department of General Services capital funds that we receive as well as the deferred maintenance dollars.
And you keep data on some of those? How many, are you talking about demolishing some of the buildings that?
Yes, yeah, we have.
Which campuses?
Oh, we have probably all campuses have buildings that would be in the demolition pipeline. We look at those on an annual basis and take demolitions to the Board of Governors for approval, and then they get into the capital pipeline for demolition. We have buildings and properties that we're looking to transfer. If there's a partnership that we can make a transfer for those locations, we do that as well, and then sale.
Can you cite some of those examples of some of the shared use space or some of the partnerships that you're developing right now that you could share with us?
Yeah, from a partnership perspective, universities do partner a lot of times with local businesses or entities that will come in, utilize the space where they can have learning experiences with students. So we have a variety at Cheney University where
Which
there's...
one?
Cheney University has several partnerships. Penn West Cal, California has partnerships where they'll come in, lease a piece of the space as well as for themselves as a business entity, as well as the students there on the campus.
So they are sharing it with the students to maybe make it into a STEM building where they can utilize it, do some research development on what they're working on.
Yes.
With all of that. That's good to hear that. So, lastly, has DGS contacted you then about this? Is there difficulty in what you're going through to kind of take some of these buildings off and maybe utilize them, refurbish them, use them for other things in the community, other areas?
We work very collaboratively with DGS. We talk to them on a monthly basis about our projects, and if we have to sell, we have to go through them. So we have a very good working relationship with them to move things through the pipeline, because they also know, those buildings that are offline and have a cost.
What's the timeline that they give you or that you ask them for? Are you looking at 6 months, a year, a couple years out?
I will say it depends. If we're doing a feasibility study to see what the cost of an activity is, that's usually in the pipeline to get something through where they're starting within 6 to 9 months. If it's construction till they go through the process from the bids, we're probably about 2 years from the time the board approves something until they start a project.
Okay, good. Well, I see I'm almost at yellow, so I do thank you for all of your time.
Thank you. The pride of Butler County. Thank you so much. Representative Kincaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Bullock, it's always lovely to see you. Thank you very much for all the work that you've done supporting students in Allegheny County. I'm always very impressed with what CCAC is able to do and deliver for Allegheny County students, so thank you for that. Chancellor, it's also lovely to see you. It's really great to have a chancellor of the PASHE system who is so invested in the success of the students of the PASHE system, and one who will not treat me like an idiot and lie to my face. So I think that's important, and I really appreciate your role. I do have a question. As a Bloomsburg graduate, what's happening with Commonwealth University and the president there is a little concerning to me, and I'm not going to ask you to get into details about that specific situation, but I am wondering if you could give me an overview of in situations where a president of a PASHE university needs to be held accountable in some capacity, what is the process that that happens in order to do something like that?
Certainly. Our presidents are evaluated annually, and there's a cycle for actually extensive evaluations, what we call a 360-degree evaluation. That evaluation process actually is currently underway at Commonwealth University. It was started actually before the holidays, and we've identified an outside evaluator from outside the Commonwealth, from higher ed, to come in and do this 360-degree evaluation. Obviously, when we have a vote of no confidence from faculty, that's something that the board looks at very seriously. That's a serious statement from our faculty. It's certainly a factor that we take into consideration as we evaluate what we have to do, what action we might need to take in a given circumstance. But the presidents are given great autonomy to run their universities, and then they're held accountable for the outcomes. And I can tell you, having been in this system for many years, there is true accountability on the presidents.
It's a slightly different process for presidents in terms of, possibility of removal and whatnot. Is there a different process to if it's determined that a president needs to be removed?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the process.
If it's determined that a president should be removed, is there a process for doing that, or how does that work exactly?
Well, there are employment agreements that dictate the different circumstances that might exist. You can have termination for cause, termination without cause, and there are processes related to all of those possibilities that would be implemented as appropriate.
Okay, Thank you. And turning to our community colleges, we've talked a lot about the fact that the governor has proposed flat funding. I'm wondering if you could just talk about, there's sort of a informal agreement that our community colleges are funded in 3 sections, that it's the county, it's tuition, and it's the state that are providing the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for funding. Has the state been upholding its end of things, and what are the what it is that we would need to do in order to ensure that we're at least upholding our end of the bargain?
It's a very, very good point. It is designed where it's a third, a third, and a third, and you will see across the Commonwealth the differences, municipalities, county, school districts. I'll speak for Allegheny County. In Allegheny County, it's about, based on 2024 data, almost 28% of county support. For state support, it's about 31.5%. And then the rest is made up with tuition and fees.
All right. And so we're a city, so we're funded fully by the city. The city supports us by about 35%. That includes our Cattle Scholarship, which is the last dollar scholarship for our students. Students by far make up the bulk of the cost, the revenue that's coming in, and the state is around 26%.
Yeah,
and the answer to your question, as far as I've been around, it's never been a third, a third, a third.
Okay.
It's just
And from a 15 community college lens, these are according to audited figures. The state is 27.7%. Our local sponsors are 17.1%. And the rest is in terms of tuition and fees, but that also does include our continuing ed, first responder, emergency services.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank the gentlelady. Representative DeVanzo.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. I'd like to get into the dual enrollment funding. Governor Shapiro has proposed a $7 million funding, would be the same as last year from the Department of Education, but you guys, however, are asking for double that at $7.5 million appropriation. Can you touch into what this program fund is and how does it benefit the community colleges, and is there enough demand for this appropriation?
As we prepare for the future workforce, we are very committed in reaching students before they graduate from high school, aligning dual enrollment programs to pathways into emerging fields such as in healthcare, nursing, advanced manufacturing, information technology, education. Being able to address the areas while in high school allows a student to earn college credit, be able to complete a credential sooner than the normal if you would enter into college, and then providing also career and college readiness, which is really one of the key areas of focus. The more that we can expand that, it creates that clear pathway for our graduating students to know where they're going after high school. It also gives us a projection to determine how many students are in the pipeline for some of the emerging fields.
How many families would you say participate in the dual enrollment program? I don't need an exact number, but a percentage, just a...
Well, I have an actual number. So
perfect.
In 22-23, community college sector, just shy of 22,000 students. So it would actually be my guess in the following couple years that number continues to increase.
Okay. I know from my personal experience with my daughter, some of the credits weren't accepted, but we still seem to be in that model that we're still in college for 4 years. She may have finished up a little bit early, but she had some credits. There was a hiccup with some of them there. So it still seems like, how many students are graduating early out of that 22,000 to go? You have any idea on that? Yeah, that's a tough one there. And are you confident on the quality of the enrollment courses? Are they meeting the needs of the education for the student?
I will say that we make a significant effort in ensuring that the quality of the programs that dual enrollment students get is the same as our regular students. Same teachers, same curriculum, same requirements, They don't take separate classes. They take the same courses. The teachers, in most cases, don't even know that they're dual enrollment students. So those courses are rigorously evaluated and assessed on a regular basis because that's how we keep our accreditation. So that's done on a cyclical basis. And in the case of some of the professional fields, nursing and so forth, it's not just our accreditor, but it's our licensing entities that look at those courses. So the students don't get, you know, it's not a watered down version of college.
Okay. Perfect. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Mullins.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here and for your life's calling, being about helping others to find theirs. So thank you for your lifetime of dedication to people like us and our children and students everywhere. My question, Chancellor Fiorentino, it regards just a status update, if you could, regarding the consolidation undertaking.
Certainly, thank you. Well, the consolidations are ongoing. We have the three schools that make up Commonwealth, Bloomsburg, Lock Haven, and Mansfield, and the three schools that make up Penn West, Edinburgh, Clarion, and Cal. A lot of effort has been underway. Obviously, one of the main reasons for engaging in the consolidations was to try to preserve opportunities for students in more rural areas to be able to continue to receive high-quality higher education. That certainly has been maintained in these areas. A second factor, of course, is to try to achieve some scale economies and save some money. We have seen a significant reduction in administrative overhead on the campuses. Obviously, if you go from 3 presidents to 1, 3 provosts to 1, and so forth, that does save millions of dollars over time. There's still a great deal of work to be done. We're still examining the program arrays. And let me point out that those kinds of challenges are really important for all the PASHE institutions, not just the consolidating schools. All the schools have to make sure that they're offering an appropriate array of programs to enable them to live within their budgets. As a result of our significant enrollment declines over time, we have to be mindful of how many programs we can continue to support. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the importance of choice, and we certainly value choice, and the students value choice, but we have concern that perhaps we're offering more choice than the students are really looking for. And if you look at the enrollment in some of our programs, the very low enrollments, there's evidence to suggest that that's something that we should be considering, both at the consolidating schools and the other universities within PASHE. The consolidations are an ongoing effort. When they were originally started, it was clearly stated that this was going to be a 5 to 7 year undertaking. We're a couple of years in. There's still much more work to do, but we are definitely seeing progress moving towards stabilization of the institutions.
I appreciate that. You know, I'm a product of the state system by degree, and also literally my parents met at Mansfield University. So the status of that, and that is also one of the campuses closest to my district. So the strength and resilience of those institutions up there are very near and dear to me. Do you believe, despite consolidation and the savings generated and forecasted by that, that there is enough demand despite student enrollment declines to make those sustainable institutions, the newly consolidated ones?
Absolutely. If you look around, there are many small schools that are thriving. You have to be efficient. You have to have the appropriate number of programs, the appropriate number of employees, the appropriate number of facilities, and we've all been talking about some of the facilities issues. If you have a significant decline in enrollment and you have a bunch of buildings that you're not using, well, it costs money for them to be sitting there. So it's very important that we realign the resources to be able to operate efficiently. But yes, there's nothing that should stop us from realigning these institutions so that they will be able to continue to thrive into the future and to generate significant numbers of graduates for the Commonwealth.
Excellent. Well, it's great seeing you again. It's great seeing all of you. Chris, Doctor, I believe, I'd like to think that our time together at Westchester is due some credit for both of us sitting here today. So, thanks.
We thank the gentleman. Representative Marcel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you for being here this morning. I don't know if you remember from last session, but there was a lot of conversation about community colleges, the consolidation. I'm happy that we're not talking about that in this particular hearing. Community colleges are very important to me. My father was a graduate of Bucks County Community College, which is right near my district, and it's a wonderful local college that is really providing so many programs and benefits to our community. And so I just had a couple of questions in the community college realm. One is that I saw that the community colleges were requesting $5 million in additional funding for non-credit workforce development. I was lucky enough to go to the Advanced Manufacturing Center in Bucks County with the president of Bucks County Community College so that we could do a tour, and it was wonderful to see the programs that they were focused on there that were like really helping people in the community to get jobs. And the president of Bucks County Community College shared with me that they have educated nearly 6,000 students through the workforce training programs over the last 3 years. That's a huge number. I'm so happy that the community college in my area is doing that. And also that the employer partners and some of the building trades have been helping, so we have a 90% job placement rate in Bucks County. So I just wanted to see if you could talk to me a little bit about what that additional $5 million, could do across the Commonwealth to help in areas like this, which I think are very important.
It's a great question. In Southwestern Pennsylvania, non-credit programming, we've done a lot of work in apprenticeships, aligning programs in the mechatronics, electric vehicles, industrial maintenance technician. This allows the individuals to work and learn at the same time and become apprentice. That in itself requires expertise, purchase of new equipment, and the ability to engage students in the actual experiences that they would get with hands-on jobs.
I think the most significant benefit of the money would be our ability to provide a means for students to take these courses. As you know, non-credit courses do not receive the equivalent of what the credits do in terms of Pell or Title IV funding. So we have to either support them through private dollars or work, sometimes labor and industry will provide a grant and we can support them, but there are so many students. We have welding programs that are $6,000 for 13 weeks. So many students just, when they hear that number, they walk away. Most of the time, we try to find a means for them to continue. But that is probably the biggest impediment. It's not just us. This is an issue across the country. As you know, the federal government for years have been trying to move this across the finish line, the idea of non-credit workforce-based support, but it has yet to happen.
And while it's a very important part of our mission for community colleges, these non-credit workforce development programs and first responder and emergency services and public safety, we do not make money on those programs, I can assure you.
Well, and I'm actually glad that you brought that up. That was my next question. So relating to the public safety first responder training, there's also a $5 million ask for that. And I know that in Bucks County, we are the largest provider of firefighter training in Pennsylvania, and that we trained nearly 38,000 first responders in the last 3 years. We are sending instructors to all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. It's a great story, but I also know that we have been operating with a deficit for some of those services, which are very important not only to Bucks County, but the entire state. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. Are there is that enough, funding, or should it be more than that?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that it's important to note that $5 million in each category with our ask would be a first step. So we wanted to make sure that we put this back on the table. In many ways, these were funded well over a decade or so ago, but rather than put in what might appear as an unreasonable amount, this would be a first step. As you pointed out, Bucks is certainly a leader And collectively as a whole, we educate 80,000 first responders in the Commonwealth, and you know what's going on in that area is there's not as many people who want to be first responders, firefighter training. So this would really help our sector a great deal.
Well, thank you so much for all of what you're doing, all of you, for what you're doing for our Commonwealth. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentlelady, Representative Curry.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate when the community colleges and PASHE come, because in my district, in the 164th, in Delaware County, we desperately appreciate community colleges. It's really important for our students, and what I want to focus on today is the dual enrollment. I know Rep. Devanzo asked about, the impact of dual enrollment, and I'm going to share with you quickly what it has done for Upper Darby School District. And I want to ask really about the $7 million in appropriations for it, but the importance of it in my district and what we've seen. And so first of all, I just want to encourage this movement of dual enrollment and make it clear that it's a gateway for students to go to college. End of story. When I think about Upper Darby School District, not to drop my school district's names, but Upper Darby School District and William Penn School District, it's really important for our students who may not have a direct way to get into college. Because of finances, let's be clear, this is a really important way. And so not only for those who may be going to college after the community college experience, but also for those who receive specific trainings in trades such as welding and carpentry, as well as supporting police departments by the way of their police academy. So we've seen great impact in the 164th district and beyond in Delaware County for our community college, not to mention we are going to be having a great new building and facility right in the Upper Darby area. So I am a proponent and an advocate for it. But I want to know, with that, I heard that you said 22,000 students were enrolled. When I look at the Upper Darby School District, in comparison in Delaware County, we lead the way with 1,267 students that were enrolled versus those who are in the hundreds, right? And so it's really important that it stay in Delaware County for us. And looking at the $7 million appropriation for dual enrollment, can you talk about the role that it has had? And also, I've told you my experience, but the role throughout the Commonwealth as I'm looking at those numbers. And also, there's an upward trend. How can we continue that trend? And what do you attribute to the increase in high schoolers taking advantage of this dual enrollment program?
I think, I don't want to use the term market, but I think parents and students have realized the value of being pushed towards higher ed at a younger and younger age. They've realized that students as early as 15, 16, 17 in their developmental life cycle are perfectly capable of doing advanced work. There's no reason, and so they shouldn't be stifled because the system only allows you to move forward once you graduate high school. And I think the evidence is clear. The dual enrollment is not new. It's been around for quite a while. I think we're finding more and more ways to be able to support it. And parents especially are knocking at the doors. They want their children to be on that advanced cycle and to get into college. And one thing I'll just add to this, it's not just an educational value. There is a social value to this as well, because they're connected to higher education. In most cases, they're taking some kind of program during the summer, keeps them off the streets, keeps them out of trouble. It's after school in many instances. Most of our dual enrollment programs are on our campuses. So somebody once said, if you want to give a student a college education, give them a college education, give them a college experience. And I think seeing the campuses, seeing the life experiences in other students really inspires them. And so I think it's really a social phenomenon that's happening with this dual enrollment that we are in the forefront with.
I want to add something. There was a time when I was vice president, when I was in charge of the dual enrollment program at Westchester University. And At that point, this was probably 10 years ago now, the belief seemed to be that we needed to have the absolute top high-achieving students who would be attending dual enrollment. And what I quickly realized, with the students who were enrolling from the Westchester Area School District and the Downingtown Area School District and so forth, these were students who were not going to be going to community college and PASHE schools. They were going to be targeting elite schools. I think a big difference at this point is what President Generals just said. It's recognized that the students are capable of doing this work. We have to demystify it for them, give them the opportunity, and let them see that they can be successful. And as a result of that, we're now seeing a much wider array of students from different performance levels stepping forward and participating, which is why we're seeing such a significant increase.
I appreciate that answer. I know my experience. I taught at LaSalle University and had some of the best students who were, in high school in those classes competing with college students. So thank you very much.
Thank the gentlelady. Representative Krupa.
Chair, and thank you to the testifiers here today. I want to circle around to the line of questioning that Representative Mullins had. I come from southwestern Pennsylvania, southern Fayette County. My father, two of my brothers are both CalU graduates. So my line of questioning was very similar originally to Representative Mullins, so I want to follow up on those questions. One of the responses was that there's a great deal of work that still needs to be done. Specifically, where are we in that transition and what work needs to still be done?
Well, the challenge now is we've stabilized the existence of the schools. We don't have to worry right now about Mansfield actually disappearing. It's now part of something stronger, or Clarion disappearing because it's now part of something stronger. So it has given us a base to stabilize and continue to offer programs on these campuses and leverage the 3 campus universities to be more effective. The work that needs to be done, we continue to need to be right-sizing. We've lost a significant amount of enrollment, and the process of right-sizing an institution is very time-consuming. And one of the things I want to talk about specifically is what we call a teach-out. I referred earlier to the fact that we need to reduce the number of programs, the program array that we offer, but when we do that, we have to continue to offer the program for the students who are currently in it. So while we're going through transitions and adding additional programs that are new high-demand programs, we're still in a position to have to offer these legacy programs that we're going to eliminate, but we can't eliminate them until we have made sure that the students who are currently enrolled are able to complete those programs. So that's a big piece of it. A second big piece of it is that we have gone through a significant demographic decline, and we have another one on the horizon. We have the next 5 years, the projection is for about a 7% drop in that high school graduating population. The numbers beyond that are even more foreboding, but 7% over 5 years is alarming. We need to be looking at maintaining as much flexibility as possible because, unfortunately, we're likely to see continuing enrollment declines in that traditional age population. Number one, because it's declining, and number two, because a smaller percentage of those students are choosing to attend 2- or 4-year institutions. So part of this is we're seeing great progress, but we can't step back and relax. We have ongoing challenges into the future because these issues have not disappeared at this point.
I'm very happy to hear that it will be a phase-out process so that we don't have students in a 2nd or 3rd year of a degree program.
No, absolutely.
So what specific programs are currently being contemplated to cut, and what does the time frame look like for eliminating those programs?
I don't have a current list. We can track some of that information down for you. There are different things going on different campuses. We're doing a lot of, one of the things we're working on right now, we have a new software system that we're implementing that is enabling us to be able to offer programs to students across different universities. So in some cases, while we might be eliminating a program on one campus, we're not eliminating that program completely. The students from a campus where it's eliminated in terms of being physically offered would still be able to take that on a different campus where it's still being offered. We're trying to concentrate the students so that we're delivering the programs efficiently. But it's an ongoing process of reviewing programs, deciding which ones we really need to keep, which ones are meeting the needs of the Commonwealth. Even if the enrollments are low, there may be important programs. So it's a tedious job to try to sort out what should stay and what should go.
So other than, I do hear a lot of complaints about the name at Penn West. It rings almost of some type of a state prison. But the other complaint that I've heard from a constituent was that a particular course that was relevant to their area of study was not being offered at their particular campus. How often is that happening? An expectation that somebody that's going to Cal is going to have to go to a different campus to actually get that in-person instruction?
Well, the model is that they would not be expected to travel to a different campus, that the course would be available to them online from their campus.
Okay, great.
So it's a combination of face-to-face and online programs that we're utilizing to be able to maintain the offerings across the multiple campuses.
Okay. And on the flip side of reducing programs, what specific programs are you currently contemplating introducing?
Well, we've been introducing a number of programs. The STEM areas are extremely important. We're looking at engineering programs. And by the way, we're being very careful in rolling out engineering programs. We're not putting them on every campus. We're trying to make sure that we're offering opportunities and not creating excess duplication, which has been somewhat of a problem in the past. But we're always looking, we're listening to the needs of the Commonwealth, the businesses and other organizations, and we're making sure that we're offering the programs that are going to be meeting their needs.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank the gentlelady. Representative Siegel.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chancellor and doctors, for being here today. We truly appreciate your testimony. I want to start first on just the subject of affordability, and I want to commend you, obviously, for not raising tuition from 2018 and on, and obviously your commitment to not raising it moving forward. And I think that's a laudable goal that we should absolutely be promoting across the Commonwealth. But I still think at our core, we're basically maintaining a system that is wildly unjust and still deeply unaffordable. We know that the cost of college education has tripled since the 1980s, and Pennsylvania graduates, 64% of them carry college debt. We're the third highest in the nation. The Institute for College Access and Success, for example, found that Kutztown University, which is close to my neighbor in Lehigh Valley, the average debt load there is roughly $41,000 a year, and 84% of students graduating will carry some form of debt. And almost a quarter of student loan debt in Pennsylvania is private, non-federal, meaning it's significantly more expensive for folks to carry. I don't want to steal any of my chairman's thunder, but I've been a long-time advocate of the Pennsylvania Promise. We know our governor last year had proposed the idea of families who earn $70,000 or less a year spending no more than $1,000 a year on tuition. Can you talk about the importance of a program like the Pennsylvania Promise in providing universal access to higher education and providing folks a gateway to the middle class?
Well, we're certainly seeing neighboring states that are offering similar programs. We certainly have some concern about Pennsylvania residents leaving the state to attend college in a state where those types of programs are offered. Clearly, these programs are going to be significantly more expensive than what we're offering right now. As I mentioned earlier, number one, we're maintaining level tuition. Number two, we're plowing a lot of the E&G dollars that we receive back into financial aid for students, and we're trying to do everything we can to get the cost for the lowest income families as low as we possibly can. And if you looked at it from that perspective, we are doing a great job of keeping the costs down for those most vulnerable students. Many of our students, frankly, come from families that can afford a PASHE education, and we need to be sensitive to where we need to be concentrating resources and where we don't.
I can sympathize with that, and again, I commend you for your efforts to concentrate your your financial aid on the folks who certainly need it most. Although I would argue the cost of education is cost prohibitive even for many middle-class families and folks that we would consider of means. And I think the evidence as it is now is that even for folks who do have a considerable amount of money, their kids are still graduating with a large share of debt. And I think that if we believe that a public four-year or two-year degree is one of the great gateways to the middle class, I think we should make sure that cost is truly no barrier. And I think a society that asks any of its students to carry a debt load moving forward is asking folks to shoulder a burden. I think it's an investment in our youth, our future, and I think we should be making making that investment. And so I think programs like the Pennsylvania Promise are the right way to go. I hear you, it's certainly more money, that's on us, but I think it's a commitment we need to make, and I think it makes us more competitive as a Commonwealth. My second and final question, and I think you would agree, not only is it important that we serve the students, but we wouldn't be able to serve those students if it weren't for the incredible faculty, staff, and coaches that make up our PASHE system. I'm a big proponent of, Senator Hughes has a bill in the Senate called the Public Sector Disclosure Act. I'm working on a companion bill in the House that would require our public institutions to provide timely disclosure of contact information of employees to their respective collective bargaining units, which make it easier to unionize and organize and make sure that our employees in our public institutions, particularly PASHE, know their voices are heard and valued. And I think there's no more important signal we can send to those folks that we support them. What are your thoughts on legislation like that, the Public Sector Disclosure Act, and having a allied relationship with your collective bargaining units and not an antagonistic one?
The relationship with our collective bargaining units is absolutely critical. This is our workforce, our faculty, our staff, all of them. You know, one of my favorite things to talk about is, even from the AFSCME perspective, when you talk about why students choose to attend a university, they walk onto the campus and how it looks is what's really most important. And the people who are responsible for how it looks are not the faculty or the administrators, it's the grounds crew. And I can tell you, having served as president of Westchester, we had a grounds crew that took incredible pride in the appearance of that campus, and it made a huge difference in our ability to operate the campus. Everybody in that entire operation, from the outstanding faculty to all the support staff who support the students in many ways, who make sure that the facilities are working, they're all critical. Frankly, legislation that would be enacted, absolutely we would be supportive of following the law and maintaining that.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think it's important that our collective bargaining units know that you guys have their back and that you want to work with them as a partner to make sure that it's easier for them to organize, easier for them to make sure that their employees' voices are heard. And I agree with you. Everyone from the janitor and the groundskeeper to the college football coach and the professor, they're all valuable and they make our system work. So thank you.
We thank the gentleman. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's great to be here. Quick shout out to the PASHE schools. You know, as a IUP grad, parents graduated from there. They met in the Oak Grove, you know, on that campus. And as a faculty member ourselves, I think our kid number 5 is going to be headed to a PASHE school. You know, we have 4 kids in college right now. And so our world of this college stuff is very familiar. And I first want to follow up and connect the dots in this area of dual enrollment. Early on in the hearing, the gentleman from Chester, his response, about 95% of community college credits are being accepted and transferred. You know, those are the community college credits, and those would include the dual enrollment classes, because a lot of those dual enrollment courses are going to community college.
Let me say this. If a student has taken a dual enrollment class at a community college and has transcripted credit on the community college transcript, absolutely, that transfers, period.
Which it's great to see. And then we had my colleague from Westmoreland, 22,000 families, I think it's a great program. But my concern is, I don't know that we're seeing it in earlier graduation rates. You know, when I was on university stats, almost 7 out of 10 Pennsylvania students are graduating in 150% of normal time, six years, you know, and looking at IUP, you know, only 37% of the students are graduating in 4 years. Kutztown, 44% of the students in 4 years. So I'm trying to get, if AP in dual enrollment classes, kids are coming to our schools with more credits than ever, but they're not graduating early or on time. Can you touch on, and I don't mean that as a knock, I'm just trying to understand.
Sure, well, first of all, I do have some data on the students who are taking dual enrollment classes at the PASHE schools. Now, the numbers are much smaller than the great work that we're seeing at the community colleges. It's something that we're ramping up now, and we're seeing more and more of it. But of the ones, we had 1,304 students. And 61% of those students who have taken dual enrollment courses graduate in 8 terms, compared to 43% of the comparable PASSHE students.
8 terms, that's 4 years.
Right. Well,
So
8 terms is 4 years, yeah.
Yes, it's 4 years.
And then 70% are graduating in 12 terms, which is compared to 50%. So we're seeing
12
those
terms
results.
would be how many years?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
So I guess, would we be, and again, this is a positive thing, I think we want to work together so that families that are paying for these dual enrollment courses in advance are seeing it on the back end. I know that's what a lot of families we know, and I think it's a really positive thing. It's just, you know, it doesn't seem to be corresponding with earlier graduation times. If your organizations could maybe track and provide to this committee the actual percentage of dual enrollment and AP students that are graduating early, I think that could be really helpful. My next question is more directed towards the community colleges, but also applies for our 4-year universities. And that's in the area of foster students, foster care. You know, only about 25% of foster students attend 4 years. Most of them, 75%, attend 2 years. But across both of them, it seems we have about a 90%, greater than 90% dropout rate. You know, only 2 to 6% are completing their community college time. 3 to 4% are completing the 4-year time. You know, can we touch on ways that, you know, what you see at your universities? Because I think the community colleges are a great place for fosters to get plugged in. What are some of the gaps that are contributing to such a high non-completion rate?
One of the areas that we are constantly working on is the engagement of students, relationships, active activities with other peers, so there's a sense of belonging. As a student gets connected, sees their value, actively engage with student activities, student life, athletics, it provides a different motivation and encouragement for wanting to complete, because through those experiences, it also connects them to, gosh, I can do this. I feel like I'm a part of something. So we're all strategically working collaboratively to present the environment where students feel a sense of family and a sense of support.
It just doesn't seem to be working. You know, we're at 9 out of 10 students don't complete. Again, moving forward, I think this is an area where we can work together to try to bridge those gaps. And if I can, 30 seconds, Mr. Chair, thank you. For the 4 years, you know, we passed the foster independent tuition waiver program in Pennsylvania, but it doesn't include housing. Does the foster student having to pay for the housing, you know, create additional burdens, you know, from your perspective, just because I mean, it's an uphill battle coming out of that world?
In my experience, the foster students are actually receiving financial aid to cover their housing. I think that there's specific housing aid that would be applied there. So, you know, I talked earlier about the food pantries and some of that stuff. So, some of those issues are being dealt with, helping them, but typically the financial aid is helping them to be able to live on campus.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Mays.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here today, and happy Black History Month. I want to shout out, of course, Dr. Bullock from CCAC. My question to you this morning, Dr. Bullock, and to share with the chamber, is that there are so many ways that we can advocate for maternal health and Black maternal health, not only in the greater Pittsburgh region, but across this Commonwealth. Dr. Bullock, could you share the work that you're doing with your doula program and what successes you're seeing, and what motivated Community College of Allegheny County to take on this area?
It's great to see you. 2 years ago, in conversations, meeting with community leaders and healthcare providers, they spoke to us about the maternal doula component and the impact it has had on our underserved communities. We launched a program. It's a non-credit funding initiative. It's over 10 weeks training. We offer it at our Homewood Brushing Center. It provides easy access. It prepares them to work as in the field as a doula, which is well received, very positive. We have a waiting list for individuals to come into that program. It is emerging. It gives families a sense of support, areas in which they're very comfortable, and we want to continue to respond to that need.
Awesome. And so, you know, it's important for us to understand what a doula is. A doula is a support person, a non-medical support system for a pregnant mom or birthing person, and they are critical for the entire length of pregnancy and the postpartum phase. So community colleges stepping in to help us expand our perinatal workforce is incredible, and I really want to commend you for having the vision to open this field up, especially in districts like mine in the city of Pittsburgh. So I just want to thank you for that and look forward to learning more and working with you as we bring Black Maternal Health Week to the city of Pittsburgh in April. So I also would like to turn to Dr. Generals. I have a question for you. I wanted to share, about a year ago, I had such the great honor of speaking at Community College of Philadelphia with Center 1968. We talked about the Crown Act. It was an epic opening for the center. You know, you have one of the most diverse community colleges in the state. You know, you have largely students of color, you have a large Black female student population. So I was curious to know and get clarity from you, what is the status of your partnership and relationship with Center 1968?
At this point, we had to separate our partnership with Center 1968. We're looking to find ways to recreate it internally. And I think that's, you know, we did support it for about a year, but we found that there were some challenges with it and we had to separate.
Well, it would seem to me that Center 1968 was really focused on how to uplift all students on your campus and propel them into careers in public life, understanding policy, so on and so forth. And just to me now, especially with the attack on DEI, that you would want to continue a partnership like that. So I'm curious, like, what were the challenges that would lead you to sever, which seemed kind of quickly and abruptly, especially in, you know, this time when we need as many public leaders as possible, especially coming out of our community colleges?
So the substance of what you just described, we're still doing in terms of community service, public relations, government relations. There was it's a combination of financial and personnel issues that we had to deal with, and that was basically why we had to sever the relationship.
Well, I know me and my colleagues who have had the chance to work with Center 1968 found it to be one of the crown jewels at CCP, and it's really unfortunate that you separated from that entity. I know they are continuing to thrive, and I would urge you to find a way to create those kinds of opportunities for your students. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all.
Thank the gentlelady, Representative Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you folks for being here. I appreciate the opportunity. I am fortunate to represent Shippensburg University, and President Patterson is a good friend and does some great work at the university, and I would be remiss if I didn't give him a shout out and the team there for what they do as a university. And in the same vein, Dr. Ski is somebody who is on my, you know, anytime he passes the office, he'll stop by, so from HAC as well. So two folks that I think in our community that have done a really good job representing both of your entities. I have two questions that are dissimilar, but I'm going to start with this, with PASHI. Your appropriation request this year gave a report that was pretty comprehensive. I think it's 100 pages, 75 different figures. A lot of information in there. I'm wondering, Mr. Chancellor, if there's certain figures or you know, reports that you are really focused on in the interim role now that you have, that, you know, because there's a lot in there. Is there something that you're specifically focusing on when it comes to that report?
Well, first of all, the the issue of our enrollment declines and the message that we are still graduating significant numbers of students, and 80% of them are taking their first job in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's a very important statistic and really reflects the impact that our graduates have on the Commonwealth and the importance of the investment that we receive from the General Assembly and the Governor to continue to support affordability for our students. In terms of the thing that I'm focusing on during this interim period, I have a limited amount of time, of course. I'm focused on this issue of the program arrays, making sure that we're utilizing our resources effectively. It's very difficult to downsize organizations, any organizations, and it's particularly difficult to downsize universities. I talked a little bit about the teach-outs and the impact that requires. We have faculty who are tenured, and there are collective bargaining processes required if we find ourselves in a position where we have too many faculty. But we need to be focusing on creating as much flexibility as possible, because we've been through a very difficult time, but we have an ongoing difficult time on the horizon. And if we didn't learn from what happened to us in the past 10 years and to be ready for it to happen again, then shame on us. And that's really what we're focusing on right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you highlighted, at the outset there, that what I love most about our PASHE schools and really our community colleges is that you're educating students to stay here in Pennsylvania. I think, like you said, 80%. I know President Patterson and I have had that conversation, and we're talking to our accountants, our teachers, our business owners, folks that are nurses in really important career pathways, which is kind of going to lead me into my next question. I kind of bring this up every year. What are our community colleges, and PASHE for that matter, doing for our agricultural industry? Obviously, that's our #1 industry in Pennsylvania. I know there's other universities and opportunities in the Commonwealth for that, but I think there's an opportunity for, especially our community colleges, to engage in that industry. And I'm just curious how both PASHE and the community colleges are engaging in our agricultural industry to get students involved in those career pathways.
So just a couple of weeks ago, we meaning the sector nationwide, went to DC to lobby for community colleges, our lobby day. And one of the prime areas in which we lobbied for was the Farm Bill, which it would seem obvious that it's just rural and those areas that are not in the middle of Philadelphia. But the reality is that there's so much in that Farm Bill, both in terms of direct support for farming, but of course SNAP and some of these other things. But in addition to that, at least in our case, we are developing programs. We have a program in hydroponics, things relative to being able to grow and to create food in environments where there are food deserts and you don't necessarily need a large land space to be able to do that. And I will say that we're encouraging students into the field because there are farms blocks away from the borderlines of Philadelphia. It's not like it's in central Pennsylvania.
Butler did its role as a convener in hosting our county's Farm Bureau. Representative Mostello has been at those meetings, and that's really important. Our role as a convener and to open up our facilities to host these very important groups. And I know over the years there have been some continuing education offerings which we've provided.
I would have just a similar response. We don't have agricultural programs per se, but we have many opportunities if we have people who are operating farms. And I know, again, being from Chester County, agriculture is the #1 industry in Chester County, which might surprise people, but it still is. And opportunities for non-credit training programs or minors to assist people who are operating farms to be able to have the business acumen to run the operation. These are all things that we're very supportive of.
I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. Representative Kale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention and give a shout out to Dr. Davis at CCBC, Beaver County Community College. The work that he does there is fantastic, and I've really appreciated getting to know him over the years. His school is no longer in my district, unfortunately, because of redistricting, but we still work very closely together. You know, over the course of the last number of years, being a legislator, I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of stakeholders, a lot of employers, and a lot of other types of stakeholders. Just yesterday, we heard from the state police that they are no longer requiring a 4-year degree in their process. And a lot of employers are telling us, look, we need kids that are trained in particular industry and particular trades, but they don't necessarily need that 4-year degree. Could you explain to us what are your institutions doing to accommodate that?
At CCAC, we're doing quite a bit. We work very closely with business and industry in developing apprenticeship programs. I mentioned a few of them earlier. In the areas of energy, EOS, which is a new business that came in our area, battery storage industry, we work with them to develop an industrial manufacturing technician program, which is specifically designed to support the work that they're doing at that industry. With the automotive industry, they approached us about additional technicians to work on electric vehicles. We are creating an electric vehicle technician program that will be unveiled this spring as a non-credit and then laddering into a credit program. When you look in the areas of our trades, we have 7 partnerships with trades: electrical, carpentry, plumbing, heavy equipment, sheet metal, and I missed one. They take their prerequisites with us, all the general education core courses, earning 45 credits. At the end of their 5-year apprenticeship training, many come back and take the additional courses to be an estimator and a construction manager. So we do work with them. It's a very strong partnership that we have with the trade unions. It's also an area in which we see an opportunity for growth. And then lastly, I would speak in the area of transportation. We've launched a commercial driver license program to develop CDL drivers as well as bus drivers, a Class B certification. So those are all responses to industry needs, just a few.
I would just add to that, because I didn't hear you say welding, but we have expanded our welding program. We're working with the Navy Pipeline Project, which is the supply chain for the next generation of submarines, a large part of which will be built in the Philadelphia shipping yard. It's a very special type of welding. They've committed $2.7 million to us to be able to train faculty and to be able to upgrade our equipment. So that's an area in which it's in direct response to the industry needs. And the only thing else I would add to that is we have modularized many of our programs. So for example, cybersecurity, you don't have to get a degree in computer technology to do cybersecurity. You can get a 15 credits certificate and go right to work because it's such a specialized area. We do the same with accounting. We do the same with some of our other areas as well. So we've pulled out the very specialized areas in those fields and allowed students to be able to take just a certificate, and that's become very popular. In response, so all of our programs have business industry advisory groups. So this is in direct response to what the industries are asking us to do relative to what the demand is.
Just to jump in from our perspective, first of all, I think it's very important that we understand what the community colleges are good at that we're not good at, and we don't try to move into the realm of training programs that they're already doing well. I think that can be a problem in terms of resource allocation. We do have a number of areas where we are offering non-credit credentials that do relate to the programs that we're offering, and we're making those available because in many cases, people are looking for a specific skill set, not a degree. And again, we need to be cooperating to make sure that we're building on the strengths of the organizations and not trying to duplicate what other schools are doing so that we can compete with them and try to take away part of that market. That's not a useful thing for us to be doing.
Well, I appreciate you all looking at what Pennsylvania employers need. I've one quick question for you, Chancellor, regarding the medical school at IUP. What's the progress? Where are we at with that? And how are things moving forward?
Well, just quickly, the medical school, the work is underway. There's a dean hired. It's an extensive process to develop a curriculum. A medical school obviously has to be accredited, and it's a long process. We're very early in the process. There's significant fundraising going on. The medical school program or college has not been approved as of yet. There's a lot of groundwork that has to be done to get them to the point of feasibility study and so forth for us to determine whether we're going to be able to move forward with it. But so far, the progress has been very successful and things are looking good.
It's a very interesting and exciting concept. I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. Thank you, Mr.
Thank the gentleman. Chairman Struzzi.
Thank you, Chairman Harris. Thank you all for being here today. A couple of clarifications that I'd like to work through, and then a couple of questions for each of you. Related to the PASHE budget, so we're looking at a total of $661 million. This is what the governor has proposed in his budget, an increase of $40 million or 6.5%. And will that all be used to freeze tuition? Or is there, just to clarify?
Will it all be used?
For the tuition freeze.
Well, what we're committing to is that that's the amount that we have determined that if we can receive that, we will be able to operate with balanced budgets without having to increase tuition.
Okay, excellent. And then my colleague from Butler County mentioned buildings, and that you have an inventory of buildings. You're looking at building usages. And I know on the IUP campus, and I do appreciate my colleague mentioning the School of Medicine that we're trying to get underway, and that would be a great asset not only for Indiana County but for rural health care across the board and the PASHE system. And I'm proud that IUP is in my district and we're helping to support that. But I've seen on the IUP campus they're tearing a lot of buildings down, a lot of buildings, and putting in some parking lots, green space. I would assume that there's a cost to tear those buildings down, but in the long run, are you looking at the schools across the system, looking at buildings you can remove from the system to save money? And do you have an estimate on what those cost savings might be by taking these older buildings out of?
Let me ask Sharon to respond to that.
Yeah, just generally, when we look at the cost avoidance of buildings, so, it's going to vary by the square footage, but it's about $14 per square foot of savings that we get when a building gets demoed or, we obviously get revenue if we sell it, but, taking those offline is, it can be significant. Sorry.
So in the long run, you will see a cost savings for the state system by moving forward with these demolitions and or selling properties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, now I want to shift to the community colleges. So in your budget request, you essentially are asking for a $30 million increase overall, with the increase of $16.6 million in your operating appropriations line, another 3.25 in the community college capital fund, and then $5 million, as was mentioned by my colleague from Bucks, for non-credit workforce development, and $5 million for non-credit public safety first responder training. Is that accurate? Yet in the governor's proposal, he is only proposing a $13 million increase. So just to clarify, in the governor's budget then, that's not even going to cover the request for an increase in your operating appropriation. So that means that the capital fund will not see an increase potentially, and the programs to help workforce development first responders will not happen. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I just want to say, I think, if we're going to fund anything, first responders and workforce development should probably be a priority. So I appreciate you putting that forward. But again, this is the beginning of the process, and we'll have those discussions. And then a question for all of you. Well, let me back up for 1 second. With new programs like that, and some of the programs you mentioned related to workforce development that you're already undertaking, how long, I guess, sometimes it's hard for educational establishments to pivot quickly. How long does it take to get a program like that up and running if an industry partner comes to you and says, hey, we need workers in this field? How long does it take to get something like that moving forward?
I'll make a general statement. Generally, a little longer for academic approval. It needs to go through 3 or 4 steps to ultimately get that approved. In the community college space, it can, in some cases, include the trustees. In other cases, it doesn't. From a workforce development, non-credit perspective, it is much, much quicker.
Okay.
I would say that the approval for academic programs certainly is a process. One of the things that we have to be careful about is making sure that something that appears to be a need. We had a situation a few years ago at Westchester where we were told there was a need for statisticians, and apparently the need was for about 15 statisticians, and once we graduated them, all of a sudden the need wasn't there anymore. So we really do need to take some time to assess, all right, what is the market for this? What's the best way for us to be able to meet this need? A secondary factor would be whether or not programs require a lot of capital associated with them. When we launched biomedical engineering a few years ago at Westchester, or the other engineering programs at Shippensburg and Slippery Rock and others, clearly we had to gear up the technology to be able to offer those programs. So that adds some additional time and cost. But I will say, I've been in the system for 41 years, and there's a much greater sensitivity to the need to be agile and getting things approved as quickly as possible than how it used to be.
I appreciate that. One quick question, and then I'll wrap up here. We've heard from some students that they're having issues getting funds through FIA. Have you had any challenges or issues with that? I think there's a delay or something that some students have shared with us and some of my colleagues from around the Commonwealth.
There have been challenges. We've been working closely with FIA on these issues. I commented earlier that both the state system and FIA have been putting new software systems in place which are challenging. FIA is clearly committed to addressing the challenges. For most of the students, it's fine, but there are a small number where we've had issues that are requiring a lot of manual attention, and they're putting a lot of effort into making sure that happens. But in the meantime, we're assuring the students that they're not going to be negatively impacted by the delays that are occurring.
Okay, thank you. And so it's attributed to software issues, essentially a transition. Okay, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank the gentleman and thank the panel for being here. I don't really have a question. I mean, I've heard a lot about IUP and Mansfield, and, you know, Mr. President, I know you're from, Mr. Chancellor, I know you're from Westchester. Nobody mentioned the greatest state system school of them all. It's definitely not Kutztown. Although I love Kutztown. Nobody mentioned the Millersville University of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Representative Fleming. Come on, clap a little louder, Representative Fleming. Thank you. Just wanted to give a shameless plug to my alma mater.
Representative Harris, I apologize for that oversight.
I know. That's next year needs to be in your notes to start off with praising Millersville University. Okay, all right. No, just joking. Thank you all for all of the questions. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you all for your service to the Commonwealth. We are going to recess in this hearing. We'll be back this afternoon at 1:15 for our state-related universities. Members, please let's gather on the steps of the rotunda for our group picture. All right? We'll see everybody else back here at 1:15. This committee meeting is adjourned.
Oh, man, good, good.